Hello and welcome back to GameSpot's continuing coverage of E3 2013. You're watching Stage 2. My name is Daniel Dwyer. We are only a couple of games left in our coverage of E3, but we still got some absolute bangers here, and I am delighted to be joined by Mr. Dean Hall, who's going to show off his very own creation, your love child, DayZ. How you doing? Before the game, I have to mention it, you were climbing Mount Everest like last month.
That's right, yeah. In fact, only a few weeks ago, yeah.
A 42nd New Zealander in the history. Congratulations, yeah. That's quite a feat. Yeah. Why did you want to do it, and how can you just take time off in the middle of developing a game to
That is a good question. Yeah, it's something I'd always wanted to do, and I guess I needed a break. Been working really long time, long hours on DayZ, not even taking weekends and that. So it was something that was planned when we thought the game would all be wrapped up by then. So just kind of happened, really. Yeah, and then out of it and straight back into getting ready for E3.
And you've obviously got you have an army background as well, so that type of survivalist mentality is probably something you're just used to as well, going out and doing crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure you get used to it, but certainly it gets in your blood. Yeah, that's for sure.
We'll talk about it now in a sec, but if you could sum up the experience of standing on top of Mount Everest, what would you say?
Sure, I guess it's kind of like the opposite of claustrophobia.
Okay.
It's like you feel sort of enveloped by the view, definitely, yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get enveloped by the view of the zombie genocide.
Sure.
This is a project that you started working on yourself a number of years ago. Obviously, it was initially a mod for Arma 2. It's grown legs. It's even had the flattery of being completely ripped off by somebody else, which we won't talk about. But this obviously is the standalone version, which you guys are doing on a completely new engine. Just tell us, what are the fundamental differences between this and the DayZ that people will know from the mod?
Sure, I guess the biggest thing is that so Arma has a background as a first-person shooter for a long time. And anyone who's played the mod will tell you that there's a tremendous amount of problems, a tremendous amount of issues with it as a mod, because Arma was never really designed to do what we're intending to do. So. Sure. We've spent a considerable amount of time now turning it into an MMO. So it runs off an MMO architecture, which allows us to deal with problems like scripting and hacking and all those kinds of things. It also allows us to adjust performance, having a lot of things occurring on the server. Yeah.
So in terms of architecture, does it share anything with Arma 3 at all?
Well, I mean, it shares the sky, so the sky comes from Arma 3. We looked at Arma 3, a lot of people really wanted us to head in that direction, but really we needed to make sure that the server architecture was good, and that was one of the big concerns. We also needed to make sure that we could run a large number of AI and spawn items in the world. So at the moment in this development build, there's 100,000 items spawned. So there was a lot of considerations we needed to make. If we basically just sort of get on parity with Arma 3, one thing we would have to do would be to implement DirectX 11.
Okay, yeah.
That would have an impact on player performance.
You've been great at publishing videos on your YouTube channel, basically giving updates as to how the process is going along. How important is the community involved in DayZ? From the start, it feels like the community did a great job of broadcasting that mod to the wider world, to people on YouTube, to games journalists like ourselves. How important are they in the sort of the future evolution of DayZ?
Well, I think they're really critically involved in the process. In fact, we were joking at our stand before that our CEO was saying, "Oh, you're going to Res, this video gaming conference." And I was like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "Yeah, I found out about it on the internet." So internally in the company, we're not so good necessarily at communication. A lot of our members of our project are checking out Reddit or my Twitter to find out what's actually happening. So yeah, look, the community made DayZ what it is, and when I had to move on to the standalone, the community actually took over stewardship of the mod.
Wow.
And so yeah, like they're just absolutely and completely important, and that's why we're trying to be very open. This build still has a tremendous number of problems with it. The zombies are about 50% done. Their attacks don't don't work at all. Don't work properly at the moment. So, yeah, like that's part of the plan. We just have to be open about our development, get feedback from the community, and push forward that way.
So let's talk about mechanics then. The in and outs of DayZ are what really make it what it is, like mechanically how it operates and the sort of specific rules that you guys have. What are you adding to the experience that people won't have had in the mod?
I guess one of the biggest changes in terms of mechanics is the inventory system. So that was another thing we revamped as it was going to an MMO. We basically allowed it to create items as entities, so we're able to do so much more with them. We're able to do weapon customization, item degradation, and our crafting system, which we're quite proud of. So you can only see the very basics of a lot of these systems here because we've built all the architecture, but we haven't actually linked the content up and configured the content. So yeah, it's definitely one of the things I'm most proud of that we've changed is, yeah, the inventory system. And I think that new mechanic is crazy. Another new mechanic is the health system. Health and damage has been, well, incredibly revamped to be a lot more in depth, and we think that's going to help a bit with the kill on sight mentality. It's really going to force players to interact with each other.
So how do you do that? Like I said, what was one of the wonderful things about the mod was that because it almost felt like a kind of a lawless world. Like it felt like a game that was sort of created without a rule set in a way. It was like very politically flat. Anyone could decide what they wanted to do. So how do you, as a game designer, encourage people to try and maybe work together and form those bonds that then can be strained when you get in situations where there's not enough equipment or ammo?
Yeah, it's quite a pertinent question, really, and a number of people have been asking those kind of questions. I think that one of the most important tenets we have when we've been designing the game is that we won't make a judgment over the style of player that the player is using.
Okay.
But we also need to make sure we add options, and that's one of the main problems with the mod in terms of play style, is that there wasn't really a lot to do.
Sure.
So when there's not a lot to do, people run around, shooting each other. That was the main thing that was available.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful that in providing options, that will give all the players who play DayZ the opportunity to choose the style of play style, the style of play that they most want.
So are you reserve an indication to try and maybe add in like fully formed like campaigns or quest lines and stuff like that? Like,
I don't think we've ever really looked at that. There's a lot of games that do that very well. It's the same with single player. I just think that it's not a very fun single player experience. So we're really just trying to focus on what made DayZ good. And I think quest lines and stuff like that aren't the option. What we really want to do is make it so that players have some encouragement to actually, go around and explore and create their own stories and almost their own quest lines.
Well, that's the unique experience, I guess, one of the tenets. Okay, let's talk about multiplayer. Let's talk about what it's the actual experience of logging onto one of these games. Is it going to be the same as in the mods, that there's servers that are up there with a set number of positions in them that you go in? Same sort of situation?
Yeah, very much the same sort of situation. So we've integrated quite heavily with Steam.
Okay.
So their process has allowed us to increase the pace of our development. So using that, we're able to do the authentication. So it's a lot more straightforward to actually get in and play. I guess that's one of the advantages of having the engine, is having access to the engine and our revamp of it to be an MMO, is that we can streamline the whole process and deliver a much more polished outcome. Like early on in the mod, it was taking people hours to find a server that was empty, or sorry, that had a slot, and then it was taking them hours to wait for their character to load. So
it's a good problem to have from your perspective, but
I guess it was a good problem. It was pretty stressful at the time, for sure. I guess it showed how much people wanted to play a game like this. We've stayed very indie, very small team to keep quite agile, so maybe we don't have the polished production values in some areas as other projects, but we're hopeful that the creativity creativity's there, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to fix the bugs that people can see and deliver on the promises that we've made.
In terms of server architecture, will there be dedicated servers? Will you be allowing people to modify server scripts themselves? And what's the cap on the amount of people you can have?
Sure, so we're opening the server hosting right up, so anybody can host a server. They connect that server to our central server, which holds details. We used to have a whitelist system. We're going to go back to a blacklist system.
Okay,
so
cool.
basically, if we identify a server that's doing something wrong,
it's off.
We'll disconnect them from the hive. And I guess, the number of players we're looking at, we're playing with at the moment, it's about 150 players. We think that more than that, the Churnerous map just isn't big enough.
Yeah.
We want to design the engine so that it can have more than that, but certainly, the 150 is the sweet spot we're aiming for.
Are you looking at having multiple maps as well, and how about user-created maps?
Yeah, so at the moment, our overall priority is to eliminate hacking. Like I often say to people, it wasn't like aimbots and stuff like that killed the DayZ mod. It was parachuting cows and the Thunderdome. So, we're basically, in order to achieve that, we need to go right back to basics and make sure that, basically, unfortunately for the moment, shut down that user-created content. But we're committed to bringing that back in. And one of the ways we think we can do that is by working with the people who have made these maps, giving them support and resources to see if we can encourage those projects to grow and then become part of DayZ.
Have you thought about integrating with Steamworks at all for that sort of stuff?
Thought about it. I guess the most important thing for us is that security. Because I think without that, we don't have a game. No one's going to play this. So once we've sorted that, that's when we'll look at how can we bring back user-created content to DayZ, which is, to be honest, one of the most compelling parts of DayZ is both the in-game created content and the out-of-game created content.
Absolutely, especially considering the inception of DayZ itself was a user-created project you created off of a franchise that you loved as well. I had some of your compatriots, at least on the Arma 3 team, on the stage yesterday, and one of the questions we talked about was the problem with simulation games, how when you create a simulation game, when you have one element that is simulation and another element that maybe isn't a simulation for the sake of gameplay, that sometimes people get a little bit pissed off about it. It's like, well, it's not realistic then, is it? You obviously have to, it seems a bit realistic in a way talking about simulation when you've got zombies running after you. But obviously one of the staples of DayZ is that it is a realistic take on zombies. Has there ever been stuff that you felt could have gone in or you didn't put in because of gameplay reasons, even though it would have been quote-unquote realistic?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of that. It comes up a lot. I guess I always try and avoid using the word realistic because I think it's a really loaded word. So I tend to go for authenticity. I think
that's good.
I think authenticity is about all we can achieve, and we're trying to achieve that authentic experience of what would I do if this actually happened. An example is, so you can see he's running around now with an AK-74. So we're creating an attachment system. And we've got the attachment system created, we're just having to create the attachments. And basically, in the real world, a lot of attachments are not actually, don't actually fit most weapons. You kind of have to get a specific silencer for your specific weapon, etc. So we've decided that, in the interest of gameplay, we kind of want to have it so that there's a lot of commonality between some of the attachments, so that you don't just find a scope that only fits this very specific weapon. So that's an element of, I guess, plausibility that we've sort of bended a bit away from realism, more towards authenticity.
DayZ obviously is a game for people who don't know, maybe who are watching this, is I guess persistent death is one of the hallmarks of it. When I've been playing, there's always a lot to do at the start. It's like the survival, trying to get enough equipment, trying to find somewhere safe to hold up and then feel a bit of security. When it comes to late game activities, are you adding anything else into the game for people who have survived for long amounts of time?
Yeah, so our approach so far has been to look at every element of the engine that we were coming from originally and say, does this fit with DayZ? And if it doesn't, then we're looking at it and saying, well, this needs to be redeveloped. And vehicles are one part of that. So the idea is to take vehicles, completely go back to basics with it, and come up with a way of customizing the vehicles. So if you find a door on one vehicle, say a wreck, you can actually pull that off and put that on your car.
Oh, wow.
So that's we think that vehicles will expand a lot and become late game content. it'll be much harder to find one that works, and you'll have to kind of clobber together a bunch of parts, and then you'll have to keep it maintained. So I think that's going to add a lot to it. I also think as well, late game, we're looking at underground bases. But that's a lot more later in the year. The next one for us, after we do the alpha release, we'll definitely start looking at the vehicles then.
One of the most interesting parts of DayZ as well is what happens when human players interact with each other. Do they kill each other, or do they bind together to against a common enemy? Have you ever thought about formalizing that? Is that an area that you think works best with hands off? Have you ever thought about having systems where people could party together or form, for want of a better word, guilds or whatnot?
Yeah, look, there's been some really interesting discussion online, all around the forums and social media about grouping. But we're considering a large number of issues when we deal with that. So, for example, one of them is streamers. We want to make DayZ very friendly to streamers and content creators. And one of the issues is, say, if we use Steam's integration, someone right-clicking on that streamer's name and their Steam list, and then joining their game. So we've got to balance a bunch of different issues. We are committed to coming up with some kind of solution for partying and joining the servers of your friends and that sort of thing. But we're being very careful with it. We'd rather have nothing than have something that's broken and that's going to destroy. What are some of the key parts of DayZ? So that disorientation you feel when you first come in, that's kind of part of it. So we need to come up with a solution that still meets that. Yeah.
To you, what is the future of DayZ? Is this a project, like a platform that you think will be iterated on for a number of years to come? Is this the first in a line of sequels, or do you feel this is like a sort of a service model?
I think it's, I was talking about this with our CEO Marek before. I think rather than necessarily a whole bunch of sequels, we see it as a very specific style of gameplay, quite niche actually, that a number of people are interested in. But I do think there are maybe different forms of that, different forms of that play, particular type of game that we can see. So I definitely think it's got legs, but the focus for us now is to deliver on what we've already promised.
So when was it that you first sort of released the mod? How many years ago was it now?
Well, the mod actually released in April, so just over a year ago. Yeah.
Just over a year?
Yeah.
So what's it like sitting here in E3 with a game that millions of people have played, that has had global success, and now in a new job as well with a team of people? What's it like? Did you think, was this somewhere you wanted to be, or was it somewhere?
It's definitely somewhere I wanted to be. I just thought it was going to take 10 or 20 years longer, if ever. So, look, it's a bit mind-blowing. It's a bit hard to think about it at times, and I think that. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's hard to deal with, and I think that's where the community comes in at playing a role at keeping me level-headed and keeping that interaction, so that I don't go off and suddenly decide that all my ideas are great, because they're most certainly not. So yeah, it's I often use the metaphor that it's kind of like being given the world's greatest cake, but being given 5 minutes to eat it.
Okay, yeah. Do you feel a lot of you must feel a lot of pressure in a way to sort of nail this? This has been your baby for a long time. You've got a community of people who are very passionate about it.
I guess I more feel a responsibility.
Yeah. Okay.
So I definitely feel a responsibility to deliver, and that's why I really make time to talk through social media. Well, as much time as I can anyway, and I try to make time to get on the forums, and that's why we're trying to be really open with where we are. We've seen a lot of bugs in today's gameplay footage, and I guess what I'd really encourage people is, we've got the alpha coming up. If what you see here today, I'm sure this will disappoint some people. We accept that, but we're just trying to be open about where we're at, so that those who aren't really comfortable with where it's at now don't need to get involved in the alpha, and they can maybe just wait and see if we can actually deliver on what we've said, and then they can always join later on.
Yeah, you've always had a very open book in relation to development and your community.
Yeah, well, we're aiming for a soft launch. We don't want to launch and have heaps of people and then everything break and everyone be unhappy. So
we've obviously added functionality into the standalone version of DayZ. Is there any stuff that maybe you're taking out of that was surplus to requirements in Arma, like for example the different various stances and whatnot? And
wow, yeah, how long we got? So a lot of it's under the hood stuff. So Arma is an amazing engine because of what you can do with it. So I'm sure those who've played, Arma 2 or Arma 3 and maybe have got into the modding of it, realize that there's a tremendous amount of power there, but unfortunately there's also a lot of compromise that has to be made with that. So one of the issues with maybe say using Arma 3 to do DayZ is that you can actually sort of have less AI, a lot less AI than we can do here, and a lot less objects, because there's so much more detail and intricacy and stuff like that to it. So yeah, we're really making sure that that what we actually have inside DayZ is quality stuff, and actually stuff that we need. So we've ripped
trimming
out,
the fat, kind of.
Yeah, trimming the fat. We've trimmed a lot of it. I think some ridiculous amount, like 50,000 lines of code or something. So when we were doing the inventory system, we actually commented out like just the entire inventory system and wrote it from scratch. So yeah, I mean, I've been saying that like last year, I basically gambled the whole project devoted to doing this new MMO architecture and looking at a entirely new inventory system and stuff like that. And it looked pretty grim for us in December. We didn't really have anything to show for it, but things just started to come together.
One of the pieces of technology you guys have supported, I've seen people use a lot, is TrackIR. Yep. Will you be supporting that in the future? And also, what about stuff like Oculus Rift?
Yeah, so absolutely TrackIR. Oculus Rift requires a bit more work. I tried it out at PAX Prime and I loved it. Really got on with the guys. Like, they're great guys.
I've been dying to have a go. I've Jeff Gerstmann in our office in San Francisco has a copy, has one. I didn't get a chance to grab that one. Apparently it's here. I
actually have in my pocket somewhere here. Whatever it is.
You got an inside line?
The CCP guys have given me a chance to go up, so I'm just going to rub it in. So I have this VIP, the ticket here to go check it out with the CCP guys, because they're pretty awesome. So
they're doing one for they're doing like an Eve kind of this shooter type thing where you look around.
I think it's won a few awards from the show, which is pretty amazing considering it's a development version. So look, we love this kind of stuff. I think anyone could see that it'd be just great sort of thing to have with us, but we need to make sure that performance is there for the standalone, so that the Rift can run right. Yeah, and it's absolutely something we're interested in.
I'm enjoying your new inventory system. Obviously, the inventory was one of the parts in the mod that was probably the largest hurdle for people to jump over. I'm not sure if I really fully ever understood it, but I got used to get it to work.
Yeah, like. Look, I think there are people who are disappointed with the inventory system we have there, because it is quite bare bones. But I guess what I'd say to them is we really wanted to increase the immersion. We also wanted to iterate very quickly, so we wanted to come up with something that was very functional. And we certainly think it's very functional, and we're interested to hear people's feedback once we go to the alpha. I mean, it can't be any worse than what we had before, that's for sure.
That's fair enough. So whereabouts are we on the island here? Is this what type of landscapes are we talking about? Is it lots of populated areas, any military bases?
Sure, so this is actually Libor. We picked this village, one of our map designers wanted to show it, and because it's got a lot of representative stuff in it. So there is, we've got military bases nearby. I mean, it's a 260 square kilometer map.
It's pretty big.
And another thing, you can actually see the quick bar, which is the only UI you see on the screen at all. And you can actually see two maps, which are part of that quick bar. And those are actually map fragments.
Oh,
so now you can actually find, so this is a map fragment here. You can see it's a quarter of the map. And so he's got another map fragment. And when you find these fragments as a demonstration of our crafting system, you can actually craft them together, which Matt's doing now, which is great.
Oh, excellent.
So then he ends up, he's reformatting his command bar there, and he ends up with a crafted together map. So, yeah.
What type of tactics do you tell first-time players to go with, or is the joy of DayZ just basically jumping in and trying to find your own feet?
Well, I guess one of the first things I say is that it's a lot like a disaster scenario. So you can kind of follow any sort of civil defense planning. So the first thing is have a plan. So when you come into the world, you need a plan. Don't just run to the church because you think that everyone's going to be there, because the only people you're going to meet is bandits. So you need a plan, and you need to be able to modify that plan as you go. Wow, that was a good shot.
It was. Down in one.
Yeah.
So if we can go back a little bit further and talk about the inception of this idea, where did this come from, the whole concept of DayZ? Was this something that you kind of had from your time in the military, like something about training and whatnot?
Yeah, so when I was in the army, I got posted to Singapore, and I actually did their officer training. So as part of that, I had to go to Brunei to do survival training.
Okay.
And while I was there, it was a really intense experience overall, really crazy experience, and I actually ended up getting badly injured, and I kind of thought there's got to be a better way to give soldiers like emotional context to their training. So I developed this little system and I demoed it to the army, but unfortunately they sort of thought, in New Zealand, wow, we're a wee way away from being able to do something like that.
Okay.
So it was during some conversations with friends and my brother and that, we sort of go, well, what would I do in the zombie apocalypse? And then I was like, I've made this system, kind of like DayZ without zombies. I was like, I can actually use that system to test that theory, and I guess the rest is history. Yeah.
No, it's kind of serendipity in a way. It kind of fell into place. Dean, just for people who are watching, what platforms is DayZ going to be launched on? Are you thinking about consoles at all?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think it's over to us to not screw this up, and I hope that that most people look at this and go, well, they're heading in the right direction. At least mostly the right direction. So yeah, look, consoles are definitely on the plan. Unfortunately though, with consoles, they need to be indie friendly. Like, this is an indie project, so we need to be able to self-publish it, and we want to be able to push out lots of updates. We don't want to be paying for updates.
So I'm guessing then the Xbox One and the Xbox 360 have got significant roadblocks then.
They do have roadblocks, but you know what I'm hopeful that Microsoft will really value indies there. Like, I think maybe we don't necessarily make the most money always, but Minecraft showed that there's plenty to be made there. But we'd love to see DayZ on the Xbox One. We love to see it on the PS4. We've talked a lot with Sony, and they're really excited about it, and they're pretty much just like, whatever you need, we can make that happen. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful about the Xbox One, but maybe everyone's so concerned about other stuff, they're not concerned about the whole indie thing, but I'm really concerned about the indie thing.
I've been talking to a lot of indie developers over here about the sort of two relationships that are happening between Microsoft and Sony. Is there very much a feeling in the indie community that Sony are going out of their way to try and communicate with you guys, and Microsoft are doing the opposite?
Yeah, well, I come from a background before the army and video gaming, and in particularly third-party console gaming development, and I would say the Sony that I've seen and we're seeing now is a complete 180 from a developer standpoint to the Sony I used to know. So that's good. Like, that's good for third-party developers. It's good for indies, and I think that's good for gamers. And I think we can thank people like CCP and that for carving the way. Like, I don't know what they gave Sony, in terms of what food they bribed them with. It's good times for us. But look, I'm hopeful about Microsoft. Maybe we just haven't heard anything about it yet. So.
Sure. In terms of the two consoles, on a personal level, which appeals to you the most?
The PC. Oh, look, I'm sorry. I'd love to say one. I have a 360.
You'll be lynched by the community, is it?
Yeah, I know. I have a 360 at home. I played it for about 30 minutes.
Really?
To be honest, yeah.
Just not.
Oh, my laptop's sitting there. It's got a Kerbal Space Program on it. It's got Prison Architect. I play a lot of really random, weird games. So.
Yeah, lots of indie games as well. Lots of games that aren't even out yet.
Yeah,
so those are the ones you're talking
13,
about.
I love Space Station 13. It's free as well.
I haven't played Kerbal Space Program yet.
Oh, you've got to play Kerbal Space Program.
I hear I've done a lot of Prison Architect. That's
good. That's good. It's maybe a bit more of an acquired taste than KSP, but I love, especially the latest alpha of Prison Architect. Amazing. had a riot, like my whole prison got destroyed. Fantastic.
Yeah. So you've been around here E3. Has this been a fun experience seeing a lot of games, or has this been the typical developer experience of being locked up and being forced to talk to people like me?
I've been locked up all day, and then at night it's all like business parties, meeting people. And
all
that sort of
these
stuff,
parties I have to go to.
Yeah,
CCP have invited me.
Yeah, it's not quite as fun as you think, but yeah. And then when I get back to the hotel, it's working on the build. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
What?
This isn't a showcase. This is a development build. So every morning we download the latest development build.
There's a lot of talk about that as well, because historically in E3, a lot of the AAA developers can put the time and effort and money into creating a specific build for E3.
That's right. 3 months beforehand.
Yeah.
Actually, the day before we turned up here, I was sitting down. I was like, "What am I thinking? What are we thinking? Like, we're showing a development build of a pre-alpha indie game at E3. This is this
just
is crazy.
Just wait. Awesome, Dean. Thank you very much for joining me on the stage here. Could you just tell the folks at home whenabouts they'll be able to play DayZ Standalone in any sort of form?
Yeah. So look, we're really close. We're not picking a specific day, but we're talking about a few months basically. So we're really heading there. But I guess while I'm saying that, I want to add a big caveat.
Okay.
And that is that people don't buy into the alpha unless they really want to be part of a rough early development project. A lot of people remember what Minecraft was like in the very, very early days. Same with Prison Architect. They don't need to buy the game straight away. They can wait a little bit, maybe till the end of alpha. They'll still get it at the same price. It'll only increase in price when we head towards the beta.
Okay.
So our alpha process is for those who are happy with like all the little bugs that we've seen in here today.
It's
and
like
the big bugs.
Community QA kind of.
That's right, community QA. Yeah, we're going for a very low price. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me
much.
today. I got to ask you as well, Everest, what's next? Mariana Trench?
Look, no, I really want to do South Pole all the way and North Pole all the way, but not before DayZ's finished. Yeah.
Jesus. More power to you, friend. Awesome.
Cool.
Dean, thank you very much for joining me. We've got a couple of more games coming up on the stage. We've got Merc Elites up next, and we're going to finish today. And we're going to finish E3 with Payday 2, so stick around. We'll be back in about 5-10 minutes.